His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Stottracharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Natkur Vishna Vrinda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Radhanatha King, Shri Giri Govardhan King, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu King, Sankirtan Yajna King, Govardhana, all glories to this own devotees, all glories to this own devotees, all glories to this own devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Welcome everyone. And it's too late, but Merry Christmas anyway. And it's too early, but Happy New Year. In the next few days, what to do. Anyway, as you heard, our subject is staying in Krishna consciousness. Staying in Krishna consciousness. Which of course assumes that we are already Krishna conscious to start off with, or at least at this stage. Anyway, let us say a few things about this. We do a seminar. It's called Getting and Giving Good Association and Getting and Giving Bad Association. Looking at the subject from kind of like all the different points of view, you could say. That's a very important subject. And in regards to staying in Krishna consciousness or getting into Krishna consciousness like this, these subjects are really of great importance and value. If we can get inspired to get good association, or inspired by getting good association, and then giving good association, then that will be extremely good for us. And avoiding bad association and not being bad association, at least this is what I was thinking about in regards to the subject just earlier on today. Let me just chant a few prayers. Nama Om Vishnu Hare Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyaladi Vastuchadi Shatarane Vanchkalpatruyasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitana Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So let's begin by reading a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. It is 1st Canto, Chapter 18, verse 13. 1:18:13. So, Sanskrit goes, Tulayama Lavenapi Naspargam Napunarabhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Martyanam kim utashisha. And the translation, the value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter. And what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. That's very clear, isn't it? Very emphatic. The value of the association of devotees, and even just very brief, though of course particularly if there's regular association available, then we can just imagine must be of very great benefit and not just worthy of having, but essential to have. And there is another verse, I don't know if anyone's noting things down. That was 1:18:13. There is another verse, which is 4th canto, chapter 30, verse 34. 4:30-34. And here is the Sanskrit. Let's test you to see if you really caught it just a minute ago. So that verse goes, Tulyana Lavenapi Nasvargam Napanarabhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Martyanam Kim Utashisha. What did you notice? Did you notice anything between these two verses? Or are you too humble? Did you notice? Anyone notice anything? Yes. Well, Swarup Damodar Prabhu, who is an ocean of understandings and good qualities, he said they're basically the same verse. Well, actually, they're exactly the same verse. They are actually, to the letter, the same verse. And an interesting little point, in principle, that later on in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is the story of Lord Krishna encountering a demon named Pomdraka. We won't get into the details of the story, although it's well worth getting into. But the thing is that the author, in describing this encounter, the author makes the point that Pomdraka was such an incredible fool that he was trying to imitate Krishna. Somehow or other, he also had blue skin. And somehow or other, I don't know how he did it, that it was not natural, but somehow or other, he had an extra 2 arms. Somehow he arranged that. So the author says, this man was such a fool. And then a few verses later, he says effectively the same thing. And one of our great acharyas makes the point that, just see, he has more or less, basically, repeated himself. And then the acharya makes the point that, and just catch this one, if you're trying to read the whole Srimad Bhagavatam, but you haven't made it yet to the end. He says, Srimad Bhagavatam is such a small book. Did you get that? He says it's such a small book that and there's just so much in information in it. That if you find something repeated, it must be of extreme importance. That's what he says. So here, and this is the person, the author, repeating himself, that this person was such a fool. So here we have a verse, 118:13 and 4:30-34. They're actually verbatim, precisely the same, and they're emphasizing the association of devotees as being of such, inestimable, incalculable value that you can't compare it to basically anything, like the liberation from the material world, like going to the demigods' planets, and what to speak of just ordinary benefits like what you get in this world. I read, I think yesterday, in America there was a lottery, and someone won $1 billion. That's what he said. But that, according to these two verses, or this verse repeated, it's of no value. It's not very valuable, not so valuable. It just doesn't have any value compared to the association of devotees, or a devotee, and even just like momentary association. So, yes, in regards to this idea of how we're going to stay Krishna conscious, of course there are different things that we can say. We could do a seminar on it. We should chant better, we should serve better, we should read certain books, and so on. There's all sorts of things that we can say, and they're all very, very nice indeed. But here we're just focusing on this point. Getting, and then once you get, you can give. Without getting something, you can't really give it. Good association, and getting and giving bad association. How to get and then give good association. How to avoid getting and avoid becoming bad association. These are some things that they're very worthy of consideration. And I'd like to, because I think so many of you are well-read, some of you are very well-read in Srila Prabhupada's books, and others of you, you've been at our programs many times, so you're aware of so many things at least. But here's a few examples of people who got good association, and the benefit was just, transformative in the extreme for the one who got the association. So here we go, let's see. Now, if you've read the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, then you would know that Narada Muni, when he was a little boy, means like preschool basically, or something like that, maybe 5-ish or something like that. He got the association of some great devotees. The Bhagavatam uses the term Bhaktivedantas. Bhaktivedantas, very advanced devotees. He got the association of them because they came during the rainy season when the devotees, like the sannyasis and others who travel around during the year preaching, etc. But during the rainy season, they can't really do that at least not easily. So generally they go and stay for those few months with some nice household and devotees. And so these Bhaktivedanta, some small group of them, they stayed with Narada Muni's mother. So they stayed there, and Narada Muni got their association in the form of, sometimes he would just sit and listen to them talking, discussing Krishna consciousness. Other times he would do some things to help them, like serve prasadam, take away the plates and things afterwards, and maybe, I don't know, maybe wash their clothes perhaps, or just clean up around so they could stay in a very nice sattvic atmosphere. But he did like that, basically. And after doing like that for those weeks or few months, they blessed him. They blessed him. And they said, yes, we'll pray to Krishna that you become a very nice devotee as you grow up. So, in fact, that's what happened. Because he then became, and it was step by step. Krishna consciousness tends to be step by step. But he became the great devotee, Narada Muni, who's like topmost devotee practically. In fact, I've got a list here of devotees or people who became devotees because they got good association. And would you believe at least half of them in the list, they became devotees because they got the association of Narada Muni. Yeah, so he really transformed into just an extremely special devotee through the association of these Bhaktivedantas, advanced devotees. So that's a very nice example, and if you've got Bhagavatam, just have a look in the first canto. It's right there in the first several chapters. That story, Narada Muni's telling his own story, how he got good association, which changed him from just little boy around the house to great devotee. Then here's someone else, something else. Well, famous story, I imagine you must have heard it at least a few times. Haridas Thakur gave his association to Haridas Thakur gave his association, or should we say, one prostitute, would you believe? One prostitute got the association of Haridas Thakur, and probably you've heard the story before. She was engaged by some very envious materialistic person to try to corrupt Haridas Thakur and drag him down. And he had, the materialist had some policemen there watching the scene. I wonder if our little baby, you probably know, little babies are in a different world from us. They may physically be in the hell world, but they're elsewhere in consciousness. So did you notice in the video, a child started crying, and Prabhupada didn't say anything, but he stopped talking. Did you notice that? I was waiting to see if he said something. Hari-Bol. And then, Mum, maybe we should do something actually to facilitate the mums. Yeah, because it's not easy. So anyway, there we were, Haridas Thakur, prostitute. So yeah, these policemen were there to, they're watching they're in hiding, and when, something happens, so to speak, they're just going to come out and arrest him. But that didn't happen, because even though she was actually, like on an ongoing basis, a professional prostitute, in fact. But by the association of Haridas Thakur, again without going through too much detail, by the next morning, well, what happened? Let me just say a couple of things. He was chanting, doing his 300,000 names of Krishna. And if you want to know how many rounds that is, divide it by 1,728, and you got it. But it's something 160, 170 rounds. So he would do that every day, and she came and she was sitting there, and she said, I'd like to, quote unquote, associate with you. And he said, look, I got to finish my rounds. So she sat and waited and fell asleep. By the time she woke up the next morning, he was still chanting. And she said, you haven't finished your rounds yet? And he said, no, that was yesterday's rounds. Now I'm doing today's rounds. So anyway, by the time he finished that day's rounds, she was also transformed. She was a devotee. Like a really, really serious devotee. And just regretting what she had been doing before. Like, it was just horrific. And fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Of course, these are special examples, special devotees. Narada Muni, those Bhakti-Vedantas and Haridas Thakur, but any association with any sincere type of devotee, even if they're not so advanced, it's extremely beneficial. There's a couple more. Well, talking about Narada Muni again, Narada Muni, how many, well, you've all seen the Nrsingadev movie, right? Right. I saw it twice. And Prahlad, when he was in the womb of his mother, the same Narada Muni who just became a great devotee, we were explaining, he was looking after Prahlad's mother in his ashram while Hiranyakashipu was away doing his austerities. And he was preaching to her. She didn't really get so much, but he, within the womb, he got it. He really got it. Even though he was just within the womb of his mother, which definitely says something for ladies who are expecting to give birth in a nearish future. Keep transcendental sound vibration in the air. Don't underestimate the child, the baby, too much. So anyway, he got it. And later on, even though he hadn't seen Narada Muni again for quite some time, he, in fact, after Hiranyakashipu is killed, Prahlad expresses his great appreciation for Narada Muni as his spiritual master. So that's another example of getting good association even in quite extraordinary circumstances. And there's all sorts I could. You know the story of Kali Das? No. Anyway, let's just say there was a devotee He was an uncle of Radhanatha Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, associates of Lord Chaitanya. And he was so appreciative of devotees. He was an elderly person, so he was not working. But every day he would go out to find devotees and to get 3 things, as much as he could during the course of the day, to get some dust from the lotus feet of as many devotees as possible, get some water that had washed their feet, and get some remnants of their prasadam. That's what he would do. How's that for a daily program? He didn't do anything else at all. So, as a result of that, Chaitanya Charitamrita explains he received the supreme mercy of Lord Chaitanya, more than anyone else, including, some really great devotees. But he got some special mercy. And specifically, there was one little incident that, there wasn't just one time, when Lord Chaitanya was going to have darshan of the deities in the Jagannath temple, before going up the stairs, there's a sort of a ditch or something like that. And Lord Chaitanya would have his feet washed, just sort of holding his feet over that kind of little ditch type thing. So he would have his feet washed before going into the temple, because he wanted to be very clean. So Kalidas, Lord Chaitanya's foot is out, the water is being poured. Kalidas came in with cupped hands and got some and drank it. And then a second time and drank it. And then a third time and drank it. And Lord Chaitanya could see this is going on, but he didn't say anything until they came to the 4th time. And then he said, listen, Kalidas, that's enough, okay. So he stopped it. But this was going on a regular basis. And Lord Chaitanya would not let anyone really wash his feet or take the water and wash his feet. There's an incident in the cleaning of the Gundicha temple. Lord Chaitanya is on the altar, cleaning the altar, it's kind of like a box. It's just an oblong sort of thing, no elaborate decorations. So he was kneeling on top, cleaning it with his feet over the edge. And some devotee, Bengali devotee, came sort of nonchalantly along with some container of water, poured it nonchalantly over Lord Chaitanya's feet, and another Bengali devotee, watch out for the Bengali devotees, came in and tried to catch some water. And Lord Chaitanya caught him and really chastised him and called Radhanatha Goswami, who was one of the most senior of his associates and who was Bengali and the leader of the Bengali devotees. And he said to Radhanatha Goswami, just see what your Bengali devotee did. At the very least, he didn't allow it. Although Chaitanya Charitamrita says, he was pleased, but still, to set an example, he really acted strongly. But Kalidas, in front of all the devotees, because Lord Chaitanya, particularly in Puri, he was always surrounded by devotees, and they'd see this going on. Kalidas getting this water. So therefore, the Chaitanya Charitamrita says he got the supreme mercy of Lord Chaitanya because he appreciated the devotees very much and got some dust from their feet, some of the water that had washed their feet, and some of their food remnants. So again, this is getting good association. Now, we don't want to start some sort of, a little unusual sociological phenomenon, but now during lunch everyone is trying to take prasadam from everyone else's plates or anything of that sort. But it's definitely something to bear in mind. So that's some getting. We should get good association. We should get good association. And that means, of course, in one sense, with the most advanced devotees possible, when possible. But at least in a general sense, it means getting association of nice devotees. Sort of, normal devotees, you could say, like that. Because to be a normal devotee, that's pretty good. It's really very good. And we shouldn't think like, I know many of you, and I know you've been coming for years and even decades, and you know everyone. And, if I say, you should take the association of regular devotees, then I hope you're not thinking, oh, you mean like him? That one, who I know what he's like. And then he comes, but, there's a fault-finding tendency which comes from being in material life and unfortunately having to associate with a lot of people who have faults, like really have faults. But with devotees, we should try and look on sort of the bright side. Prabhupada would say, the flies, they go for dirty things, but the bees, they go for the sweet things, the nectar from the flowers, and they produce honey. So even though, you probably know dozens, maybe hundreds of devotees, and a lot of them are sort of normal devotees and not like, super duper devotees. But we should try to, when we see other devotees, we should try to appreciate their good qualities, the good things they're doing, and in this way cultivate a particular type of attitude towards those even normal devotees who you see every Sunday trying to get an extra samosa, which you were hoping to get anyway. You know what I mean, that sort of thing. And then when you get, you can give. You can't really give what you've not got. But you should try and give good association. Let me just give you one little hint. That everyone is going to go and take prasadam in a little while and sit down in the tent with other devotees around, surrounding them. And what's the normal greeting in South Africa? How are you? Anyway, that's okay. It's nice to be concerned about how devotees are, even if it's more like a formality. But instead of just talking about, how are you doing, how's your health, how's the family, and what else, what you've been doing on your holidays, why not try to start a Krishna-conscious conversation when we're all down there taking prasadam? instead of just, how are you? You know, there's one conversation of Prabhupada's where a reporter asked him, how are you? In a very sort of superficial way. And Prabhupada replied, what does it matter to you how I am? And Prabhupada said, if I was dying, what difference would it make to you? Anyway, that's okay, that's Prabhupada. And the man was being sort of obviously just not serious. But at least today, why don't you try it? What do you think? I'll send spies around to tune in and listen to the conversations that are going on. But try and do something like that. Instead of just talking about the weather. In Russia, they say that if you meet a person and they've got nothing, that like they don't really want to talk to you, but they feel they have to say something. They make some comment about the weather. That's what they say. And you know, interestingly enough, in Russia, they do not ask each other, how are you? They don't do it. In fact, I've done it on a few occasions. And the devotee said, well, you know, I'm feeling like this and like that. And he gave me a report on his health. Seriously. Because he really thought I wanted to know how he was. But think about that. Think about that and give it a try. Why not? Instead of just, you know, the simple socializing type of exchange. Why not say, well, you know what? The other day I was reading something like in the Gita or whatever, and you know, I read Prabhupada said this and this and this, and then say, well, what do you think about that? And try and start a conversation, which is more like devotee association than just, you know, just small talk. Yes, okay. Then what about bad association? Well, you know, I mean, there's a lot we can say about bad association. We do a seminar about the demons in Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes and how each of those demons, at least as recorded in the Bhagavatam, each one represents a particular anartha in Krishna consciousness, like some bad thing, like a bad habit you might develop, something along those lines. So Kaliya, the Kaliya serpent, represents the anartha, or like undesirable, unwanted thing within one's character, of poisoning the hearts of other devotees, not with like some, I don't know, strychnine or whatever, but by bad talk. Mm-hmm. Yes, so if you notice something bad, that a devotee is actually doing something wrong, try and help them if you think you're capable. If you're not, don't just go and tell everybody else, but go and tell someone who might be able to help that person. Don't gossip about it. So when we talk about Kaliya, we talk about sometimes it happens. You're walking around the temple, maybe you're chanting a few rounds, walking around the moat, and you meet someone, devotee, who you know to some degree, and they walk up to you and say, Hare Krishna. And then they start talking about, it's often the temple president. The temple president can be unmarked. That you know such research the temple president. Oh yeah, sure, I know him. Well, he's a really nice devotee. This is, yeah. Oh yeah, he's a very nice devotee. But then the poisonous one says, but, a big but. Yeah, and then out comes some poison. Because the devotee said that, he's a nice devotee, so your mind, your heart may open up a bit, but, and then the poison comes in. And you know if your heart has been poisoned, if, when you see that the devotee who has been criticized, often the temple president, but whoever it is, when you see that devotee, there's like a spontaneous reaction in your mind that, it's him, the bad devotee, because your mind got poisoned. So, we don't want to get that sort of bad association, criticizing other devotees. And we definitely don't want to give it, and we definitely don't want to get it. So be mindful. Sometimes it happens that a devotee is feeling upset with another devotee, and you know the upset devotee, and they want to sort of pour their heart out to you, and you feel, well, look, it's my friend, I don't want to just walk away and sort of upset him or her further. So you just sit there and listen to their problems. Not a good policy. Not a good policy. Yeah. If someone starts pouring out their problems, which, may well happen occasionally to any of us, if we should try and help them. If we can't, instead of just listening and sort of soaking up their problems, try and direct them to someone who can actually help them. And this is something positive and can be helpful. But otherwise, if you just soak up like a sponge, you know what I mean? The problems and the dislikes and all that, then you become part of the problem, unavoidably. Just like with a sponge, it soaks up the water and it just soaks up the water. And that's it. There's no sort of choice involved. So if you soak up the problems, they become part of you and you become part of the problem. I will close. I am, and Mataji notices, I am going to close early. Can you believe it? Unheard of. Never before done. What am I going to do? I'm going to try and find something about Radhanatha, if I can find it, which I may or may not be able to. About Radhanatha Goswami. Where on earth is it? Anyway, Radhanatha Goswami, he's another one of the 6 Goswamis. And he was such a devotee that, oh my God, telephone's having a revolution. Anyway, he would not listen to criticism of a devotee. He would just walk away. He would not try and be socially acceptable by, not walking away, just listening. He'd just walk away. And even if the fault which was being talked about was actually true, that actually, whoever it was who's being talked about had actually done something wrong, he'd still walk away. He just wouldn't listen. As far as he was concerned, all the devotees are under Krishna's supervision, and if there's a need for anything to be done, Krishna will do it, and I don't need to sort of assume ownership of some problematic situation. And in effect, that's what was said. So please bear these things in mind. Yes, because we want to get off to a good start in a couple of days. Yeah, you could, a New Year's resolution, if you want to try it, you could try and make a New Year's resolution, and you could try and sort of gear yourself up in the next few days to really get good association and really get good association as much as you're able, and to really avoid bad association and really not give bad association as much as possible. And if you really work on that, then it'll help you. And you'll become a better devotee. You'll become a better devotee, and you'll become a happier devotee. Yes. And you'll get mercy. Hare Krishna. We have 10 minutes, am I right? 9 minutes or something. We got 10 questions. 1 minute. Oh, at the time of death, while we are asleep, it is hard to remember Krishna. Well, I don't think we really know what it's like for the person who's dying when they're asleep, because none of them have lived to tell the story. Because they all die. So, maybe we imagine they just sort of drifted off into dreamland or nowhere land or something. But who knows? I don't think anyone can really say. But the thing is this: death is coming to all of us, even the youngest, even that little child who was crying earlier. Death is coming, and that's all there is to it. So it's not so much, will I die while I'm asleep? I prefer that, because something like that. Or will I be shot, which is quite possible in South Africa? Or will I be run over, which is also quite possible in South Africa? Or what? Am I going to get some disease? I wouldn't really worry so much about that. But really the main thing is, get your Krishna consciousness together now and keep it together, because then however it happens, whenever it happens, you'll be as ready as kind of humanly possible. So, just do like that. Is the Bhagavad Gita the best reference book to guide our lives? Well, yes, it is. And Srimad Bhagavatam is also. How's that? 2 best books. And Chaitanya Charitamrita is also. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is particularly, most particularly at least for new people who are, who could become Krishna conscious, Because that was Arjuna's situation, kind of. He was in a state of great confusion about what to do. And Lord Krishna, and he had all sorts of ideas, kind of materialistic ideas. And Lord Krishna explained to him about becoming Krishna conscious. And Arjuna, as the discussion went on, Arjuna accepted and finally said, right, that's it, I got it. I'm going to surrender to you. So Bhagavad Gita is very relevant for new people. It's very relevant for everyone, actually. But it's Krishna kind of making a presentation which is geared towards people who are not Krishna conscious. Then Srimad Bhagavatam kind of takes off, it starts from where Bhagavad Gita finishes, basically, and goes deeply into the whole science of devotional service by giving all sorts of examples of devotees and non-devotees and what happened to them in different situations and circumstances and how they became Krishna conscious. So Srimad Bhagavatam is very relevant, particularly relevant for practitioners. And Chaitanya Charitamrita it's also, in a sense, starting from where Bhagavatam finishes, maybe not exactly, but it's certainly, just some extra nectar and some deeper perspectives in many cases. So they're all the best book. Isn't that good? The best, then the best, then the most best, and then the bestest. And there's no end to it, actually. Sometimes we feel the need to avoid the association of some devotees because we may not be advanced enough to be tolerant of how they may treat us sometimes. Is this considered Vaishnava aparad? That's a question that we hear sometimes. There's a certain situation with a certain devotee. Should I avoid the devotee? Well, it depends. But if the person is really offensive towards you and also to others, then it would be a good idea to, for the time being, maybe discreetly avoid them. But actually, the best thing would be to try either to help them yourself if you can, but it may be very difficult. If it's too difficult, then try and get someone more senior to help them. Yeah. Oh, is it okay to eat out at Debonair? How does that impact our Krishna consciousness? Some devotees say it's a vegan or vegetarian place, but the consciousness still lacks, and it's not so. And is it not as bad association? Well, in the Battle of Kurukshetra, Bhishma was fighting against Krishna, against the Pandavas. But for so many years before that, he had been helping the Pandavas. Oh boy, he was just protecting them in so many ways. But then suddenly now, when the battle came, he's fighting against them, trying to kill them. What happened? Well, a few things happened, actually. But one thing that happened, which is mentioned by at least one of our acharyas, is that he ate food cooked by by Duryodhana. Duryodhana was the chief of the bad guys. And I mean, he really was not a good person. He's described as an empowered incarnation of the personality of Kali Yuga. He's an incarnation of that person. And therefore, he's full of nonsense. So Bhishma ate food cooked by him, and that helped to change his mind in a bad way. So, it's not a good idea to eat food cooked by non-devotees. As much as possible, eat at home or take home cooked food to work. Shri Radha Radhanatha, Shri Giri Govardhan, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. And debonaires, I've never been to one, but I would recommend. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Around for that very informative talk, and I'm sure everyone has some new inspiration for the new year. Dear devotees, we do have a few announcements, so please bear with me before we observe Aarti and Kirtan. I've been told that we do have some new guests here today, so if we could please just get them to raise their hands a little bit, just so we could see where you are. We do have 10 special gifts to give out, and Radha will personally be giving you these gifts. So if you could please come up to the front to receive your gift.
Look at this. So, yes, please come. Hare Krishna. Special gift. Hare Krishna. Babies.
We have one more gift pack if there is one more new person or someone that would like a gift pack.
Someone here for the second time.
Someone is here for the second time or even third. Okay, now for our announcements. Just a reminder that the Navruchi Festival starts today at the Jagannath Puri Temple in Phoenix. On the 1st of January 2026, it also marks the 20th anniversary of the new Jagannath Puri Temple. There will be a very special program with His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami,